made us work, I made us worse. We fell apart 1,000 times, 1,000 times. You moved away, I'm here to stay. I wish I could go back in time, back in time. I'm so sorry that I hurt you so deep. Swear I spent the last few years just trying to change. I'm on my knees and I'm begging you, please. Is there any chance you're thinking about me? If I change my ways, babe, won't you come back to me? Make no mistakes.
Let me go for one day, let me lose myself again. Give me something for the pain, always trying to pretend that I'm not living just a lie. Broken heart and shattered lives. Let me go for one day, let me lose myself. Oh, I knew how this would end. Oh, I knew that it would die, that we would come to this, that we would say goodbye.
You are watching a Healing Element Podcast special. Show your support by subscribing to the Healing Element Podcast YouTube channel. Also, follow us on Instagram at the Healing Element Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. I am your host, 𝗦𝗫𝗏𝗵𝘁. I am beyond excited for for our episode tonight. My special guest is Tiffany Jenkins. This is actually her second time on the podcast. She was on before when we were discussing the book, Shut 'Em Down. And that book is regarding the experience of Black women in corporate America and the trauma that they face. So a link should be in the description of this box where you can, in the description box, I should say, in which you can take a look at that episode. It was awesome. And it's such a pleasure to have her back. Today's topic is the emergence of Black girl magic. Today, we're going to talk about the rise of Black women in mainstream society. We will also discuss how this rise will impact the Black community and the Black male and Black female relationship. So that being said, if you did not catch the episode in which Tiffany was on, I want to provide you her background. Tiffany is the founder of Awakening Change Consulting Services, LLC, located in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. As a licensed therapist, Tiffany's work centers around individuals struggling with anxiety, depression, and/or substance use. When not in the therapist seat, Tiffany enjoys working with supervisors and managers to improve leadership outcomes through her innovative coaching curriculum. Awakening Change is also an accredited continuing education provider, and Tiffany enjoys creating workshops and training programs to help clinicians develop their skills. Tiffany, a pleasure to have you back on the program.
Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So you and I have had several discussions prior to this episode, which is why I'm so excited to have you on. So one thing that we're going to be talking about today, and some people may consider what we're discussing controversial, some people may get upset, but I think overall what we're trying to do is to have us as a community begin to think critically and begin to prioritize our own well-being, our family's well-being, and also our community. Is that something that you would agree with, Tiffany?
Absolutely, because when we're talking about trauma, racialized trauma, right, and your platform being a place that endeavors to get us to realize we're supposed to break those cycles of trauma, we have to first get out of the trauma response of just responding instead of being present with what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing. And so, you know, this conversation is going to challenge us to do that. We can't just blindly respond to what we see on the surface. We really need to come back into the logic side of our brain, not in that, you know, fight, flight, freeze side that's been impacted by the multi-generational trauma that we have living as daughters and sons of the diaspora.
Right. I'm so happy how you said that, Tiffany, because it puts everything into context. It helps us understand why we react the way we do. And it's not just, well, that's just how we are. Like, there's a reason behind how we move in the society and why we move in the society. So to kick things off, because we don't want to beat around the bush or anything,
now let's do it.
We're going to kick it off with talking about the Cadillac commercial. This is a special that's, I'm sure, everybody has heard about this Cadillac commercial, and I didn't even say much about it. I just said the Cadillac commercial. And this is the one, I think it's a special that Cadillac is doing. It's called Audacity. And it's supposed to represent, I guess, the struggle, the fight for the Black community, their experience in this country to bring about a more just society, supposedly. And so with the monies, the funding that they get through this initiative that they have, that's supposed to go to NAACP and some other programs that are supposed to help with social justice programs. With that being said, this ad has received a lot of pushback. So if you've seen it, it's an ad with 𝗦𝗵𝘀𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗫. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the work that she's done. And I'm not going to play it on here just because I don't know if I would get dinged by YouTube or anything like that. But, you know, please check it out. I'll probably try to put it in the comment box so that way if someone hasn't seen it, they can check it out. So in this ad, it's basically it's her kind of narrating how the importance that Black women have played in her life and has helped her in her kind of becoming this woman, becoming this in the space of leadership, becoming like the social justice warrior, if you will. And she's surrounded by other Black women. And it basically paints a picture that this is the Black community. And the one thing that was missing from this was Black men. Right? Now, I understand that this was supposed to be for Women's History Month. I think that's the pushback, that this was about Black women, Women's History Month. So that's why that was the focal point. What were your thoughts on that ad? And while you share your thoughts, Tiffany, I'm going to pull up the ad and just put it in the chat box for any of those that want to take a look.
I had a lot of thoughts about this ad. The short version is that there is no short version. Okay, so
you're gonna go there.
I have to. I really have to. My problem with the way that this ad was presented, and I'm all for Women's History Month. I'm all for celebrating Black womanhood. I'm all for all of that. But what concerns me is this is, like you said, a campaign that, you know, if you look at it on the surface, we get really excited about seeing things like this, and representation does matter. But we have to make sure that that representation is not just this performative allyship that is going on. Like, think about it. There are companies who blast all kind of Black service providers, tech people, whatever, during the month of February as their Black history, diversity, whatever. But the other 11 months of the year, we don't hear from them. And so I think this is the same thing, but it takes it to another level, which is, and it kind of leads into why I think the whole Black Girl Magic in and of itself isn't a problem, but it's the marketing of Black Girl Magic that is problematic for me, because I feel like what you're doing is you are using a Black woman, in this case, it's 𝗦𝗵𝘀𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗫, and her connection with her community to sell a product, one, you're not really doing anything for the community. And when you really look at it from a business perspective, all you're doing is like decreasing your tax liability. This is a money thing. If you follow the money, you realize that this is not, because Cadillac has billions of dollars. If Cadillac wanted to do something to really pour into Black communities, if they wanted to do something to, let's just say it really is specifically for Black women, if they wanted to do that, the resources have been there all of the other 10 months of the year. February and March aren't the only two times where you can do something and take a stand, because racism doesn't take a break 10 or 12, 11 months out of the year. It's here, 12 months, 365, the whole nine. So the problem that I have with, it's not just that commercial, it's all of the commercials that kind of parade their Black folks out in February, parade their Black women out in March to say, oh, look how diverse we are. It's kind of the equivalent of a racist saying, I can't be racist because look, I have a Black friend.
Right.
And so for me, it's very frustrating because it is very performative. There is nothing that has been done. Now you have folks who might argue, well, Cadillac has always been, the Black community's luxury car, because there were times when you couldn't, I have, some of the elders always talk about how they weren't allowed to get a Lincoln. They had to get a Cadillac, which is why you were more likely to see a older Black man cruising in a Cadillac than you were a Lincoln and all of that. But that still isn't anything that uplifts our community. It's a marketing strategy.
Right.
And I think the danger of us getting excited about seeing our Black girl magic celebrated in these platforms is that we start letting people think that it's okay to just throw me a bone. Just put me in your ad and I'm okay. Just throw me, and here's the thing, that campaign, they're raising money. They're not giving any of their own dollars. So Cadillac isn't really doing anything. They're saying, don't you think this is a problem? Come on, help us do something about this problem. Now we've got this whole pot that we can draw from to help fix the problem. We can help, adjust our hiring practices. We can have a more diverse workplace. We can have trauma-informed workspaces. We can actually, do things about wage gaps and things like that. They could. But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do a commercial with someone who is visible in the community that we're trying to target, because their face somehow lends legitimacy to our campaign. And that's all it is.
Right. And it's concerning because and you have said this, we become so comfortable with symbolism. And, for a people for the past couple hundred years who haven't really experienced power, that may look like power. That may look like, oh, wow, she's powerful. She was able to get on a commercial.
But that's just it. It looks like.
Right.
It isn't really.
Right. Exactly. And so corporations, businesses, as you said, it's a marketing strategy. So obviously they know kind of how we've been socialized to know that, oh, we can place 𝗵𝗫𝗄𝗏 Mallory because we know what she means to the community. They will then, that translate to the Black community. Wow, she's got power. Look what she was able to do. But then our condition still doesn't change. But
because they have conditions.
Right.
They have conditions on her.
Right.
So she's getting I forget the foundation that she's been appointed to or whatever, and she's got like $100,000 stipend or something, and she's doing all this stuff. The problem is that if you're getting a check, you have to perform the way the terms of your employment agreement, and I think that's something that it gets missed a lot in in a lot of spaces, but particularly in ours, in our community, because like you said, we have been without power for so long that very few people understand the strings that are attached to promotional deals and things like that. It's a contract. And so to a large degree, if you are taking a contract, there are certain terms and conditions. There are things you can do and can't do, that you can say and that you can't say, because ultimately the person who's signing that check wants their brand still intact. And that's why this doesn't get us anywhere, because I'll throw you a check, but I'm not going to publicize when you start talking about things that are out of line with the way that I want my comfortable, you know, privileged, people hate that word, existence to be. When you start upsetting the apple cart, that's when you start getting ousted from places. You start being asked not to come back. And I think about, I cannot remember her name. She's a PhD that had issues with Google and was ousted. And everyone who tried to align, who tried to step up for her and speak up for her, ultimately, you know, they were slowly but surely kind of moved out the way as well. And so it becomes this whole, I don't have to tell you I don't like it, but I put so much fear into anybody who steps out of line that I don't have to worry about this happening. And so, you know, what if you look at what she's saying in the commercial, there's nothing that she's saying in the commercial that's not going to be on brand for Cadillac. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's nothing challenging the status quo. There's nothing about anything. There's nothing that says the reason why I'm surrounded by strong women and the reason why we have this strong Black women trope is because systemically our men have been snatched out of our community, either through death or incarceration. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about how, you know, Black women have had to have this almost magical persona because of years upon years, centuries upon centuries upon centuries of atrocities that we've been met with. And not only have we been met with those atrocities, we were not allowed to give any language to our pain. Because what most folks don't think about when they think about Black girl magic or the strong Black woman identity is that inherent in that is a certain degree of self-silencing. We can't talk about the pain. We just highlight all the good parts. We don't talk about everything that it's taken to get to these places and to these platforms. We just celebrate what the good stuff is. And that, I think, is what's so harmful to our communities, because we're not telling the full story. We're showing this little snippet. Oh, look, she made it. She's got a commercial. Okay, she's got a commercial, but what does that commercial do for our community? How does that commercial bring anyone else up? How does that commercial stop another murder at the hands of a racist police officer? It doesn't. It doesn't do anything. And so, you know, people get really excited about seeing, and I'm not gonna lie, like I got excited about like back in the day when Disney finally gave me a Black princess. Like Princess and the Frog was everything. I was grown, but my nieces had Princess and the Frog everything. They had a princess that looked like them. I was happy. But then you start thinking about it and it's like, okay, so we got a princess, but now what? It doesn't really do anything. Like after a while, that shiny new car smell wears off, and time and time and time again, Black folks are left with typically less, not even no more. You can't even say no more than we had when we started. Typically it's less, because what things like this do is they tend to water down movements. They tend to start silencing people who were able to, you know, build momentum. And so sometimes those organizations that they founded kind of wander and kind of fall apart. So we're left with, you got this nice shiny thing to look at, and it's almost like a bait and switch. Look over here while I, you know, the pickpocket game. You look over here while I'm going in your pocket and doing something else. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help us.
It's so true. And when you said that bait and switch, it also reminds me of, I don't know how many times, and I mentioned this yesterday on the podcast, where I saw a article that says like, the federal government has facilitated funds for Black businesses. And then you open the article and it's like minority, people of color. And so, but the headline is for the Black community. And I find that so interesting, and it waters down what's necessary for us because our needs, of course, are different.
And here's the other thing about it. When we're talking about federal dollars, this is another reason why I think this whole Black girl, the popularity of Black girl magic, let me say it that way, and the mainstream acceptance of Black girl magic is so harmful. When you apply for a grant with the federal government, if you are a woman and you are Black and you live in like a low income area, I think they're called hub zones or something like that. If the government gives you a contract, they can check 3 boxes for your one person. They get to count you as 3 people. So think about this. By having somebody like 𝗦𝗵𝘀𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁 to be their front person, let's say it was a government it works for corporations as well, so that they can say, for their diversity check boxes, we've got these folks. For her to show up in that space, right? And they can say, oh, she's Black, check. She's a double minority, because remember, the Civil Rights Act made being a woman a minority too, right? And that was very strategic in the efforts to further white supremacist effort, because we need to make sure that our women are in there, because our women are always going to bring everything back home to us. So let's just find a way so that we don't have to give up as much of the pie, right? That's right. So when you look at why Black women are very attractive as far as marketing, hiring even, because it's not treating them right once they're there, right? We got to be really careful. The Black girl magic wears off. It's almost like Cinderella. Like you're at the ball, the hiring process, you're at the ball, you're doing the ads, you're at the ball. But as soon as you get the contract, the clock strikes midnight, and you're back to being Cinderella again, right? So you could, if you were from the inner city and a Black female, be considered 3 people on paper instead of 1. So I can say, look how much I've done for the Black community, because I've got 42% of my staff is Black, because Black men aren't counted as a double minority. They're only 1. So they're quote unquote less valuable in business sense than a Black female would be. Wow. And so when you look at it that way, you really start questioning, okay, why are we all of a sudden being pushed forward so much? Well, because we're the flavor of the month. Because now everybody wants to prove, as racial incidences around the country start, ramping up, and even, there's some stuff internationally that's starting to kick up. Like you got stuff in the UK that's going on. But as that becomes more of a thing, everybody is working really hard to say, no, I'm not one of those guys. They're not doing anything to prove it. They're just working really hard to say it. And so Black women check more boxes, and we've got to be careful, because now if we're not wise about how we're maneuvering in these spaces, we're going to contribute to another foot on the neck of our brothers, our sons, our husbands, our fathers, and we don't want to do that.
Right. So true. If you are watching this episode, please share. Please share it right now. Give it a thumbs up, and also make sure you subscribe, because the conversation that we are having tonight, most likely you will not hear on other platforms. And so that's why I was so excited in having the conversation with Tiffany, that she's agreed that this is a topic that we have to discuss and bring to light, because our community, our families depend upon it. So now what you outlined, we talked about the Cadillac commercial. So now kind of having that as the foundation, when you hear Black girl magic, when you hear that term, hashtag, the hashtag Black girl magic, how does that strike you?
Like I said, at first it was
a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. at first listen, it sounds like a wonderful thing. Like, yes, Black women are magical. We, you know, we've done a lot. We still do a lot. But then the follow-up to that then becomes, well, before I go there, like so yes, Black women have done some extraordinary things, right? And that's great. And to see us celebrate our magic is one thing. That's kind of who we are. We celebrate each other. That's our culture. You know, we're all about family and sisterhood and connection and, you know, all that other kind of stuff, right? So that part of it isn't so bad. When it really sounds like nails on a chalkboard to me is when it comes from some other places. I had a I had a white woman to tell me one time that I was Black girl magic, and I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to take that.
I can understand.
And she was like, "No, like you're a unicorn." Okay. We want to talk about that. And when she got down to what she was saying, I understood what she was saying. But then I had to tell her, I don't want to be a unicorn. I want everybody to be like me. And she was really speaking in reference to like we met at a professional conference. So it was for like therapists or whatever. And well, I didn't meet her. I met one of their business development representatives. I went to talk about my practice. And when I went in to talk about my practice, she offered me a job. And I said, no. She said, but you're a unicorn. You don't understand. Like, we can't find anybody with like your combination of credentials and whatever. And I was like, okay, that's nice. So if you want to work with me, you know, you can refer folks, but I have a whole practice. And it was kind of like, you don't want to share your Black girl magic with us? And I kind of like, I had to breathe deeply.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I think I'm going to keep it to myself. And I just got up and walked out because there were so many layers to that of you deserve access to me because I can check boxes for you that no one else can check for you. And it wasn't until I was leaving that it dawned on me that I was the only person when I went to their facility to tour their facility, I was the only person, client, staff, anybody. I was the only person of any color. Let's start there. Like, and let's not even talk about Black, the only person of any color in the whole place. So I'm like, you need a diversity hire. I'm not going to be it. And not only am I a diversity hire at one point, I don't know if it's still the case because I'm so out of the loop, but at one point having the substance abuse and mental health credentials and the supervision, because I'm also licensed as a supervisor, that combination was kind of like hard to come by. And you know, she was like, but do you just understand, like, there's like, we can, and she just kept saying, you're a unicorn. I said, do me a favor, stop calling me a unicorn. And it's those situations where the Black girl magic becomes like nails on a chalkboard, right? Because it's like, you want me for what I can do for you. You want me, my magic, my fairy dust, my whatever it is to rub off on you, right? And then in another space, I heard another Black female say that for her, the term Black girl magic is offensive because there's nothing magic about what we have to go through on a regular basis. Just because we don't show you the struggle doesn't mean it's not a struggle. And that's kind of condescending to the whole process that we go through. And so those two incidences, and they both, I would say both of them happened within the last 4 or 5 years, have significantly shifted my perspective of Black girl magic. And then when I started looking at what was going on in media and the way certain folks were being positioned and following the dollars and realizing that there is a very real, we'll say, profit attached to being that double, in some terms triple, you know, minority, there you just become a walking money bag.
Right.
And so, I mean, I get it. I know that it's meant to be a compliment, but we gotta, I think it really depends on the space. It really depends on the space. And we just have to be more aware of all of the implications. And that's with anything. You can't just say something just because it sounds cute, because you don't know really what you're talking about. Like, take the Lil Nas X thing, right? Like, everybody's going crazy about his new song or whatever. When, like, if you were listening to his lyrics in Old Town Road, he's talking about drug abuse, adultery, like all kinds of crazy off the wall stuff. But you were letting your children sing that, but now not this. We just got to be more aware. Like, and I kind of hate the term woke, because I think it's like severely overused, but we really
I used to like that word, but not anymore.
Right. Like, it's dead. It's dead. But we do have to, like, in a sense, like, wake up and like really challenge some of what we allow ourselves to ingest, because a lot of it is just propaganda. And I hate to say that because it makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it kind of is. There are a lot of things that we've taken to uplift and empower ourselves that have been used against us. And I feel like the Black Girl Magic thing is another one of those things, because it's been used. Oh, since you think you're magical, then let me bring you over here. No. Don't look back. Don't go ask your husband, your brother, your son. Don't ask them to come with you. I just want you, because you check more boxes for me. You're more valuable to me. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad how you broke all of that down, because when we look at this system, it can, when I say system, I'm talking about the system of white supremacy, it continues to evolve to maintain dominance.
Yes.
So it's not going to look the same way it did in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 60s, and the 70s. It's going to do what it needs to do to maintain the ability to control resources and the lives of Black bodies. So if that means that I can, by me uplifting Black women, right, and I can still control resources, I can still control their communities, then how does that impact white supremacy? How does that, obviously it doesn't, because if it did, then we're going to go into this more about what we're starting to see, but we wouldn't see that push going on. Right. So I'm glad that you said that. And it's so interesting what you said, the money attached to it, that I don't think we understand how, I'm going to say it, how evil white supremacy is. It's an evil system.
And it's a sneaky evil.
It is. And I don't think we understand it, because I think we're looking at it more as getting someone to like us. And it's not about that. It's about maintaining dominance. So if we have to put on a hashtag Black Girl Magic, but not help your communities, not help your trauma, but you feel good at the end of the day, then we'll do that. And we'll make it look like you have power. And we're done. Like, how insulting is that in itself? Right?
It's I go back to the look away, the let's look here. Hey Val, let's look over here, and then dig in your pocket over here. It's really that. And I know we were talking about this before we went live, but I think it's worth bringing up here is that one of the byproducts of this sneaky, underhanded system is that what we don't realize is this is the reason why we have the Protect Black Women rally cry, right? We don't see it as that. We don't see the two as connected, but they very much are, because you have systemically pulled Black men away from their families, which leaves them unprotected. And that's not a male chauvinist or, whatever the term is or whatever type of view. When you have families intact, there is some level of protection. The man and the woman can protect each other. But if you remove her partner from her, she's left exposed. And
Mhm.
so when we hear these battle cries of protect Black women, some people will take that as Black men are not on their job. Okay, why aren't they? Well, because they're either locked up or dead. Well, why is that? Because there is a system in place to make sure that's where they stay.
Mhm.
And although if you look at it from one perspective, it looks like these are bragging points, right? These are points of like praise, I guess is the word I'm looking for. If you know, and like this stuff that's going on now, like
Mhm.
it's just it's a symptom of what's, you know, this is, we knew this was gonna happen anyway, because we gonna make
Right.
some folks mad, but whatever, right? But when you do that separation, when there's no partnership, you leave Black women exposed, and then you're blaming Black men for the problem
Mhm.
that they never created.
Right.
They didn't have a voice. They don't have, you know, it doesn't work that way. And so what I need folks to understand is, yes, Black women need to be protected. Yes, Black women need to be believed. Yes. But guess what? So do Black men. Who's looking out for our Black men when we get these platforms? Because what over 400 years has shown us is that no matter how magic we think we are, we still don't have enough magic to save our own families, to save our own communities. Why is that? It goes back to your point. Because the system was built this way.
Right.
It is not a broken system. And I really need folks to stop saying that. The system was never broken. The system is working precisely as it was designed. Precisely as it was designed. And when we start seeing that, then we can more fully embrace our magic to heal our communities, because nobody else is going to do it. Right? We can find a way. You know, I know countless women, either in my family or that I was raised around, who had this uncanny knack for, you know, making $1 out of 15 cents. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, we're going to figure out how to do this. Okay, we only got this amount of money. Okay, we're going to make this one pot of something, and every time we're going to switch it. So if Sunday we had a stewed chicken, on Monday we're going to have chicken and dumplings. On, you know, Tuesday we're going to have a chicken pot pie. On, like, they knew how to make things stretch.
Right.
Magic, yes, but it's really necessity. So we got to look at it from a more balanced perspective and use those gifts that we've cultivated. You know, we had to, what does it say? Sow in tears and reap in joy. Like we've sown in tears. Now we got to figure out how we take that and we can make a way out of it. We've got history that shows us that it's possible. We've got, you know, in Tulsa, we had whole cities, you know, where our Black dollar circulated. What was the difference? Well, because we didn't have a system of mass incarceration. We didn't have, you know, people, you know, we just said, okay, y'all don't want us over there. That's cool. We're going to stay over here. But that didn't really work because folk got bad and then they burned it down. But if we did it before, we can do it again. And so I think if we start looking more at how we build each other up, how we create and grow and nurture our own communities, whatever that looks like. Some of this stuff starts to fall away because they got to go find a new system now. They can't use us as pawns. We shouldn't be willing participants in our own destruction. We got to start thinking a little bit deeper, seeing things a little bit different, you know, and maybe then we'll be able to make a little bit of a change.
Yes, totally agree with you. And I think, you know, we had a troll in our comment box, and that just shows that when we as a community are being constructive and talking about building and healing, how we live in a society that doesn't want that, because we live in a society that succeeds off of our dysfunction. So when we start healing and we start saying, okay, this is some things that we can do within ourselves, within our families and communities, you're going to have people that are going to come and disrupt that. And you may even have people within your community that come in and try to disrupt it. But at the end of the day, if you know our overall goal is to come together as a collective, because we have no choice. I think it was John Henry Clark that said, we have no friends. So we all we got. So we might as well start working together, because things are going to get a little bit tighter as we look at resources and just what's going on with the state of the country. So I do want to talk about, and you had raised this, Tiffany. Now, what we see going on, and there's two things I wanted to bring up in particular when we see kind of what's going on with this Black Girl Magic and support Black women and listen to Black women. I saw in the news that Goldman Sachs launched a partnership with Black women-led organizations. This is a new initiative from Goldman Sachs called 1 Million Black Women. It's the largest announcement of its kind in size and scope, and will drive investment in housing, healthcare, access to capital, education, job creation, and workforce advancement, digital connectivity, and financial health for Black women. Now, when I look at our community, I think Black men were also suffering. And it's because we live in a society in which policies are based on race for us and not gender. So that's one I wanted to bring up, and I want to get your response. And also, Princeton University has a summer program for Black teen girls that's now available online. So we already know the numbers for Black men, the jobless rate. We already know as far as the amount of Black men that are in college, and then, of course, getting a higher degree. So when I look at this, awesome for Black women, but I'm wondering why this can't be for Black men and Black women when they have faced similar oppression because of their race. What are your thoughts?
It won't be, because Black men can only check one box. The impact doesn't go as far, right? And like you said, Black women are already, and this is part of the making $1 out of 15 cents. Black women are already the most educated between Black men and Black women. Black women have more degrees. They, are going further, whatever. This is a corruption, I feel like, of the Me Too thing. And what I mean by that is, it is, again, I go back to performative allyship. Mm-hmm. Because if you say that women are minorities, right, and you say that women are a larger minority group, if you go by the numbers, you can justify it and say, you got women who are minorities, and so they're a double minority. So we got to make sure that we do more for them because they've got two things. And everybody loves to throw around the word intersection nowadays.
Yes.
Right? Intersectionality. Which, that's a whole nother conversation. Not even going to go there. What I will say is that concept has been bastardized to make sure that they get more government bang for their buck. They can count Black women twice. I can't say this enough. And if nobody believes me, go talk to someone who deals in government contracts. Go ask them how these minority-owned, women-owned certifications are looked at on a federal contract level, and they will tell you that the federal government is allowed to count you once for every box you check. Which means if I do these programs for two minority groups, then I have double the leverage as far as saying I'm making a community impact, getting a bigger tax write-off, giving a very weak head nod to working in the Black community. And it doesn't really require me to change anything about what I'm doing. It doesn't require me to impact the system on any level, in any way. It is simply lip service. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is that between Black men and Black women, and listen, I'm a Black woman. Do I want all of the opportunities that I can get for me, for my nieces, for my sisters? Yes, of course. But I'm also the mother to 2 Black boys.
Mm.
And I know that the way things are rolling, they're looked at, if you want to look at it as a hierarchy, technically a dog's life is more important than theirs.
Woo!
Because
wow.
if I kill a dog right now,
can you say that again so that can
dog's life
in?
A dog's life right now in these United States of America is worth more than either of my Black sons. I would get more time behind bars. I would get more heavily penalized, more heavily prosecuted if I walked out of here, walked down the street and shot my neighbor's dog than I would if I shot a Black man. I could probably get less time if I shot a Black woman. It does not compute. It doesn't compute. So that's why I get a little like, when we start talking about, this separation. Is it great? Yes. Do we need equality? Yes. But I feel like what's happening, this is really going to get me in trouble. It's okay. What's really going to get me in trouble is America only has one box, right? So everybody has probably seen the little fence, like where there are 3 people standing at the box. And some people, like, the fence is here so they can see clearly. For other folks, the fence is like above their head and all of that. Right?
I'm with you, Valerie.
Valerie and I have these type of conversations quite frequently, and she knows not to stir me up. But America only has one box. They can afford other boxes, but they don't want to invest in another box. So I can't help you and you, because that would be more like equity. Giving everybody what they need so that they're all on the same playing field. I don't want to invest in another box, because somehow the idea is if I invest in another box, I'm taking something away from me and mine. When there have been actual studies that show that racism in the United States actually costs us more in all areas that you could think of than just having a fair and equitable society. But nonetheless, America has one box. And so they want to figure out how far they can get with that one box. They could help Black men. Absolutely. These same programs that we see in mass for Black women, because now being a Black woman is the flavor of the month, now that there is a woman who identifies with, Black heritage in the White House. So now all of a sudden, well, look, you had a president. Now you got a Black woman that's a vice president. She's got mixed heritage, but that's what they want to pull out, so y'all made it, you arrived. Again, that performative, just look at this is your shiny new thing, stuff. They get further by giving the box to Black women. It makes them look better. But what it does is it builds up this animosity between Black men and Black women. So let's take the systemic stuff off the table. It fosters animosity between Black men and Black women, and then you start seeing stuff like you see on social media about women talking about Black men benefit from the patriarchy of white supremacy. Sis, no Black man has been given however many $1 million from Goldman Sachs. No, I'm not gonna say there are none. There are very few programs that are aimed specifically at young Black men getting transitioned to college. Where those programs exist are in communities where we did them for ourselves. We don't have corporate sponsorships for Black men unless they're bouncing a ball, they're running a ball, you know, if you can entertain me, again, it goes back to what the value is. What
Right.
can you do for me? If you can give me some value, then I'll throw you a bone. I'm not even going to help you, really. I'm going to just throw something in your direction that you'll shut up for a little bit. You'll sit down. You'll be, you'll be excited about that thing and not realize everything else that's coming behind. And so it's a really dangerous space to be in, because I go back to what I said in the beginning. This is really perpetuating the trauma that we have between us. Now, in a clinical sense, when I talk about trauma and I look at the way trauma impacts relationships, it impacts trust. It impacts your ability to just be vulnerable and be present. You are always in a sense of fight, flight, freeze, right? And I feel like that's what this whole system perpetuates between Black men and Black women. It keeps us in a fight, flight, freeze, so that we're not in the logic side of our brain. We're not looking at the way that this impacts our children generation after generation. We're not looking at any of that. We're not looking at how the Black family has been completely obliterated. We're not looking at that. We don't look at I'll give you public housing and welfare benefits, and I'll feed you, but this child's father, just put him on child support. He can't be in the home. If both of you are in the home, then you don't need my help. We don't look at all of that, but that's the cycle of trauma perpetuating itself. That is what racialized trauma looks like. Up close and personal. This is what racialized trauma is in the nutshell. It is us believing lies about our partners in crime, right? And when I say partners, I don't care if you're gay, straight, trans, bi, whatever. I'm talking about the yin and the yang, right? There's male and female. I don't care what you believe in. There's different energies. There's male and female energies. There's different, however you want to look at it. In order for us to be balanced, we need each other. I don't care if you're in a romantic relationship or not. You need balance. Right. You need that. The community has to function as a whole if it's going to function as a whole. So we need each other. And I think, that's just that's why this kind of grinds my gears. This is. I went on a whole tangent.
No, this is good. What you said needed to be said. And one thing that I thought of when you were speaking, as far as it's about the value, it made me think of post-slavery, if you will. Now we have all these Black people that we were able, through their labor, to make money off of them. Now what do we do to continue to make money off of them? So then we have sharecropper. We have all these systems that are kind of put into place to see how can we continue to make money off of these people. And as we said earlier, how the system continues to refine itself. Here's another way that they have found a way to continue to make money off of the Black community, right? And not change anything. And this is a conversation that I've had. I'm going there. Oh boy. This is a conversation I've had. And it made me question who really won the Civil War?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Nobody.
Right? Was there a concession made? Was there an agreement made? Because, right, we had the symbolic win. Y'all are free. You can go where you got to go, even though you get low land. So you're going to have to come back here and work on the plantation anyways. So have we been continuously fed symbolism that makes it look at all this progress, because we're no longer on a plantation picking cotton, but we still have no ownership over our own bodies, our families, or communities. And once we start to say we want to own those things, it's a problem. You get silenced, you get called, whatever, put in a category as like a conspiracist or something like that. because you're like, no, I want agency over my whole being, and I want to pass on something to my children, and I want to speak up for my community. And it makes me think back to what we're taught about history, slavery, post-slavery, of symbolism. So I just wanted to kind of throw it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you really wanted, if Lincoln really wanted to move in another direction, we'll say, most wars would have looked at the Civil War and called all of the Southern folks traitors. In no government that I know of, other than the United States government, were traitors allowed to just go on about their business.
That's right.
They were executed. They were made as examples that they don't stand for what this nation stands for, and therefore they must be put down. That did not happen with the Confederates.
Right.
So it leaves you to wonder, did they really speak for it? Was like, what was really going on here? You know? So I think that was where we first saw performative allyship in play. Right. Like that was really the genesis of it. And I think you're right that it has been more of the same in a different, just repackaged and rebranded as different things throughout time. And even the white folks who challenge that system of white supremacy get stuffed really quickly. And they go, they have a really hard time of it. Whereas the folks who are a little more lukewarm or just silent altogether, they get to play in the sandbox. So I think there's something to be said about that for sure.
Interesting. Possibly another episode.
You're going to be in trouble.
I know, right? But, just something for us, again, to start thinking outside the box, start thinking critically, because all of this relates to our survival.
It really does.
It really relates to our survival. What you said about your sons, like, I don't have children, but that struck such a chord with me when we see things of, some Black women in our community kind of internalizing this type of white supremacist rhetoric and saying, I don't need a man. I saw on Twitter, I can't even get Twitter it's just toxic.
It's a hot thing.
Abolish Black men. Black men are the white supremacists of the Black. I mean, when you're seeing things like that, what is that saying to our boys? And what is that saying to our girls?
It's saying that we're traumatized and we don't have the language to express our trauma because we're not. And I go back to, like, if you really study the archetype of the strong Black woman, it becomes very clear how prevalent that self-silencing piece is. And we've done it for so long that we don't understand that this is multi-generational trauma. We don't speak up about these things because if you go back to when we were enslaved, you don't talk, you don't show any emotion, because that would be an invitation to get whipped, to get your family disconnected, all of that other kind of stuff. Like, you cannot, you can't divorce our present from our history. That's really the only way to put it. And the things that we're seeing now are the fruit of seeds that were planted hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And so we got to break the cycle somewhere. And if we don't have these kind of conversations, we just keep it rolling. We just keep it rolling. Everything does relate to men negatively. Everything makes it look like the men are the problem. The issue with that is we don't look at why that is. Why are Black men incarcerated? I refuse to believe, as the Clintons said a couple years ago, that they're just super predators. Like, I'm not okay with that. Like, that's not okay. This ain't Birth of a Nation. Like, I'm not on that whole vibe, right?
That's great.
But because, like, people say numbers don't lie. Numbers do lie. I'm a researcher. I can tell you that I can make a number say whatever I want the number to say. And what has happened is we've used the numbers about Black men's rate of incarceration and unemployment, and we've spun it to paint a certain picture of Black men as lazy and violent, and they need to be locked away. That sounds a lot like what was said about us when, in the early Reconstruction periods, and even before that. Like, this is why they need to be enslaved, because they're savages, right? And so we have to be careful, because yes, they, there are higher numbers of unemployment and incarceration and lower numbers of college completion and all that other kind of stuff. But why? Why? Well, because something as simple as, like, my background is in substance abuse. Drug policy in this country is racially motivated. Not a popular opinion, but it's fact, right? So if that's the case, then there's going to be a larger net cast for Black men than there are for anybody else. If you're saying to Black women, oh, here, I'll give you a job. Here, I'll train you. Here, I'll give you education. And you're saying to Black men, no, figure it out on your own. It makes sense that Black women are going to be not only employed at higher rates, but more employable, because they're getting opportunities for training and access and all that other kind of stuff. So we got to look at what's the story behind the story. It's don't fall for, the smoke and mirrors is what it is. We have to be a lot more discerning in doing our own research and listen. The internet is, like, full of wonderful things, but Facebook, Twitter, and whatever is not research. When I say research, I mean scholarly articles. I mean looking at what research was done, looking at who did the research, because there is such a thing as bias in research.
Yes.
Going and reading a book. A very odd concept nowadays, I understand.
They still make those.
They still do make those. But, like, really immersing ourselves in digging deeper, because the information is there if we just take the time. And really, it's we live in an instant culture where we just want to be given, like, just summarize it and give it to me. The problem is, if you're waiting for mainstream society to summarize it for you, you are going to be left out of the process.
Right.
It's not going to work in your favor. So you got to do the work. Yes, I agree. We have to make progress. Oh, I love you too, Yanni. We have to make progress. We have to move the conversation forward. Even if the conversation is not on the huge platforms, we also have to not get discouraged about starting locally. There's something to be said about the grassroots work, building communities and supports within our, 4 or 5 block radius, doing something there and making sure, because everybody's not going to be able to have a global impact. Everybody's not going to have the global stage, because the global stage comes with some strings attached. Everybody's not willing to make those concessions. So you start where you are, you lead where you are, and let's, like, make this a little bit better.
Totally agree. And that goes exactly to what you were saying when we opened up with people who we opened up, if you're just joining us, we opened up talking about the Cadillac commercial with 𝗦𝗵𝘀𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁, which I'm sure, again, that everybody has heard of. And we talked about when you place yourself in that type of situation, such as 𝗦𝗵𝘀𝗶𝗵𝗁 agreeing to do this commercial, what concessions did she have to make to get that contract? Right. And so we have to, again, look deeper. I know it may feel good seeing, you know, a Black woman in that type of position, what looks like power, but we have to always look and see where, like you said, where's the money attached to this? Where is the money coming from? Where is it going?
Follow the
and
money.
what agreements were made in order to make this happen? Was it
And what's going to be called on in the future?
Yes.
Because some of the strings she may not even know are attached until they call for it.
Exactly. And we have to be mindful of that. And that's why, like you, I always say support grassroots, because when you do that, then you can better track and trace where money is coming from, where it's going to, rather than dealing with these large nonprofits that are basically like corporations, where it gets very confusing. So with that being said, I know we're kind of over time. Are you okay with time, Tiffany?
I'm good.
Okay.
We'll do whatever you need.
All right. So I wanted to say, if you are joining us, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Please like, share, subscribe, and show your support for platforms like this, where we're talking about different topics that are trending in the news, but bringing a critical eye to it. And that's all to help advance us as individuals, family, and also our community. If you have a comment that you would like to drop, just drop it in the comment box. Or if you have a question, you can place it there as well. And appreciate all your support. So with what we've said, and hopefully people understand, again, we're looking at the long game, not the the long game of how does this impact us, you know, generationally, right? Not right now, not what's making us feel good after we watch a commercial, or, you know, when we see the Black Girl Magic hashtag, what happens after that? So can we have Black Girl Magic and support Black men? Because it almost is like you got to pick.
It depends on who's making the demands. Because I believe you absolutely can. Because I think that, I mean, we don't have a cute little catchphrase for Black men magic. We've got Black boy joy, which is a whole nother conversation. I don't think it's on the same playing field. And I think that's done intentionally. Whole nother conversation. Okay. Stick to it, Tiffany. Okay. I told you this was going to happen.
I know. And guess what? When you tell Valerie to stir the pot, Valerie, I'm over here like this.
Yes. No, you like this. That's what you're doing. I think we can. And not only can we, I think we have to. I think we have to. I think we have to use the access. It's kind of, if you think about, like, historically, let's go back as far as like, let's not go too far. Let's go like civil rights movement, right? So you had Black women who were working as housekeepers or nannies or whatever. They overheard a lot of conversations. They could bring that information back. And there are some stories of how they did bring that information. Love you too, Val. Bring that information back home. And that information was used for a number of different things. They knew who was doing what. And, you know, not everything was as neat and polished as, you know, what we're presented in February. And if you read more stories about how things were done, a lot of that information came. And even, I mean, we can go back as far as slavery. You know, if you were in the house and you knew what was going on in the house, not everybody that was in the house was loyal to master, contrary to like the tropes that we see played out. Right. And so a lot of the information, no, he's leaving because he's getting ready to go see his cousin over here. So we might be okay for this week. Okay, let's plan an escape this week. A lot of that work was done by women. So there is a place to celebrate the contributions of Black women in history making major moves, because the system tends to see Black women in some settings as safer. Again, it's only because of what the perceived return on investment is for them, not necessarily because they're seeing inherent value in us. But we can most definitely flip that to our benefit. Oh, you want to give me money to learn how to do tech? Okay. I'm gonna learn how to do it. I'm gonna learn what to do, and then I'm gonna come home And I'm gonna say, hey, babe, you can do this with this, and you can do this with this. Exactly. Use our magic to give our Black men power. Do this. Yeah. Apply for this because I heard this. That's what we can do. It doesn't have to be an either or. It has to be a both and if we're going to further our community. Because here's the thing. I'm a Black woman. I love being a Black woman, but I can't make babies on my own. And so if I want to continue to see my culture represented in the earth, just in general, I do need a Black man for that. Right? Even if I only need his seed, it doesn't matter. There's still something of value that he gives in continuing my community and continuing my line and all of that. So even if we look at it at a very basic, very like animalistic level, we still have to, if we want to see our culture continue, we have to work together. And it goes back to what I said about trauma. Like, we cannot let what we've experienced pull us away. On the contrary, we've got to use our common experiences to help us be stronger together. And I think that's the danger of the Black family, because if you've got a strong unit, it's harder to tear that apart.
Yes.
But if I pull you away and I entice you, and it's not always so, blatant and in your face. So I'm saying pull you away and entice you like it's like, but it's really not. And that's why the system is so sneaky, because it is dressed up in celebration, but it's a Trojan horse. All of this, celebration and, oh, Black women, oh my God, you're awesome, you're great. I know that. Thank you. Can you help my son?
Right.
It's like if we get to that point, I think we'll do better. So I don't think it's optional. I don't think it's optional. I think that if we want to build community, we have to work together. We have to celebrate each other. We have to love on each other. We have to pour into each other. That's the only way we're gonna make it.
It's so true. And, with the episode that we're having tonight, hopefully people are getting it, or it's resonating with them, that you don't have to pick a side. And that's what we're seeing a lot on social media, and even sometimes in mainstream, where even Black men are being completely cut out of the civil rights movement. Like, besides, of course, like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but it's like, there are Black women that were involved, and it's time to share her story. Not saying that that's not important, but I think we're at a point right now where we can't try to do some one up. We are on a cliff. And there's more important things that we have to focus our energy on. And it should not be, for what it seems to me, is trying to get, I don't know who in society, I don't know if it's white people, to get them to see, like, Black women did this too. If we know in our community what we did, that's what matters. If we have value, we see value in each other. I see value in you, Tiffany. You see value in me. We see value in our Black men. That's what matters. But if we're trying to get some validation from something external,
it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And that external thing doesn't want us to succeed. So we have to think about our actions and what we're saying and how we're moving, and how does that benefit us to push the ball forward. I did want to say, we mentioned this before we went live, is that with, I'm sure everybody has seen the reports of hate crimes in the Asian community. And I actually did an episode on this yesterday on my podcast. So you can check that out if you're looking on YouTube or on Facebook. But we talked about kind of what has transpired over the last several weeks, as we saw, like, the hashtag and the marches and what's been coming from the White House. And this morning I watched an episode on, or I should say, I think it was Vice, but I could be wrong, but I think it was Vice. But they were talking about what was going on in the Asian community and the increased rates of violence against people in the Asian community. And what I saw Asian men and Asian women standing out together saying, we must do what we need to do to protect our families. And I saw such a stark contrast to what's happening in our community. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm say what you will, but their men were at the forefront, right? They were up with the blowhorn. They were up there giving the orders to the people that were there with signs and saying, listen, this is what we must do to protect our family. This is how we need to engage with police officers. There was a whole strategy that was being given by the men that had the blowhorns, but right next to them, and not that they were like silenced or anything, but right next to them were the women. And then they went up to speak. And you could see this unified movement to make sure that the people in their community were safe. Mm-hmm. And I thought, when I saw that, I was like, that was beautiful. Like, they show like, no, we all need to be protected. No one's going to come in here and hit grandma, auntie, mom, dad. No, there will be no violence in our community, and we're going to hold people responsible. Counter to what we're seeing. And I don't, when we spoke earlier, I don't think you did not see that, that clip that I just referenced, but what are your thoughts about just kind of hearing that? What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, that that is our kind of in your face proof that there's a system, there's a method to the madness, right? Because if you look, again, I'm a follow the money person. If you look at Asian communities in general, you can always find a Chinatown in every major city. Mm-hmm. There are some areas that seem to be, bigger hubs or whatever. Like, I'm by Philadelphia. So Chinatown in Philly is like a huge deal. It's a couple of streets. It's, great eats, great shops, great whatever, but there's a very tight knit community. Mm-hmm. Everything is every Asian culture you can think of is represented within those, I forget how many city blocks, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a certain financial value there too, mm-hmm. right? So nobody's going to disrupt that, because that means if their business is there, their tax dollars there. Mm-hmm. If there are tax dollars there, then we don't want to, we'll do whatever we need to do, because if you pull all of your value, like if we've built your community as a tourist attraction, right? That's how we bill it. And you contribute to tourism dollars, because Lunar New Year, you have a huge celebration, and we do that. All these different things that happen that we can make money off of, we being, the system. Mm-hmm. When you say something's wrong, we're going to move very quickly. Mm-hmm. As evidenced by the fact that there's already legislation being worked on about all of this stuff that has happened recently. Right. Black folks have been in this country for how long? And we still saying, please don't kill us. And we have right now the trial of a police officer who thought that it was okay, and within the rights of his training, as the defense attorney pretty much stated, to kneel on a man's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And we're still debating on whether or not that was legal. Mm-hmm. It's a money thing. We have to follow the money. The minute that we were no longer enslaved, we became of less value. Mm-hmm. And it was not like we were inherently valued. I'm just talking dollars and cents. Right. Because now we weren't working for anyone. We were building or trying to build wealth for ourselves. And so mm-hmm. I think that it really speaks to the pervasiveness of the system, that mm-hmm. our Black men are largely absent because of systems that have been put in place to remove them from our communities. And then the ones that are left there because of this separatist agenda that's been pushed are not feeling like they're supported. So it's all part of the same crappy game.
It is. And I think, and I know we're coming on, I think, hour and 30 minutes, so we'll start to wrap up, but we could go on and on. So again, if you are finding value to our conversation this evening, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Please also share with your networks, because it's important. Again, we're coming from a space of love. We're not pointing fingers. We're just saying we need to think critically, because we care about Black women and we care about Black men, and we see that there is something going on that does not have our best interest at heart. And we have to begin to recognize that is extremely important for our survival. So hopefully that's what you're walking away with, and maybe start having conversations with other, with men. And like, what do you think about all this going on with women? What are your thoughts? And just start to have a dialogue and begin to talk about what we're starting to see play out. Because, I mean, we're coming upon some interesting times, and I just think that we need to be mindful of that and make sure that we really become more aware of more of our own self-awareness, but also about what's happening what's going on in larger society.
Yeah, change starts with a conversation.
It does. It really does. And so with saying that, Tiffany, is there any other, we kind of like, I got my little, this is good. Is there anything that you want to bring up? Because you don't, can I just say this? Let me say this. I had a conversation with Tiffany several weeks ago. I don't think it was quite a month ago. And the connection was that we saw what was going on with how Black women were being paraded around, and the play that was coming off of the trauma that exists in the Black community, and how there's no way in the world a society can value Black women as it's presenting that it does, and not care about that woman's family. And so what happens, though, in saying that, so what happens when you have a system in which Black men and Black women are working together? You then have competition. And we saw that with Black communities such as Tulsa, in which Black men and Black women are working together, that doesn't benefit the society. So you have to create that division. And that's what we're hoping that people see, that this is not because people have recognized that, oh, Black women are so great and so fabulous. It's divide and conquer. Do you want to speak any more to that, Tiffany?
Listen, you have given me enough. I'm not opening up another can. All I'm going to say is, yes, the change starts with a conversation. And even if folks don't see it this way, having a conversation about these things and finding out, men and women, men talking to women about how they feel about this whole thing, women talking to men, if we can open the lines of communication, again, it can start right in your home, start right locally, start where you are, and then it can expand beyond that. But if you don't start the conversation, what happens is you leave room for bitterness and resentment and all kinds of ugliness to fester, because we're not addressing our trauma. We're just kind of like pushing it to the corner and letting it fester. And that, I think, is what is going to lead to us ending up hating each other instead of really recognizing the value that we all bring to one another.
So true. Thank you so much for that. And thank you all for listening, for joining in the dialogue. Appreciate it so much. Again, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, share, and also subscribe and hit the notification bell to know the next time that we go live. Yes, be the change.
Yes.
Be the change you wish to see in the world. Perfect ending to our episode tonight. So with that being said, Tiffany, if there are folks that are listening that want to connect with you, what is the best way that they can do that? Your website or social media platforms?
So on Instagram, it's at Awakening Change. On Facebook, it's at Awakening Change LLC. And you can always find me at the website, www.awakeningchange.org. There's a contact us form if you want to get in contact with me. That's the best ways to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you can also find that information in the description box of this video. So please check that out. Thank you all so much for joining. If you want to learn more about me and my services, please visit 𝗦𝗫𝗏𝗵𝘁. You can also find me on Instagram at the Healing Element Podcast and also at 𝗦𝗫𝗏𝗵𝘁 LLC. So with that being said, I will see you all soon. Have a great weekend. Have those conversations.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And let the healing begin. Let's do some healing this weekend.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tiffany, so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.